Hello, I'm just doing this as a quick follow-up to what Tim Kilgore said about this whole 1914 overlapping generation baloney from the Watchtower. Um, and now I guess the gist of it is the 1914 generation will not pass away until, Armageddon hits and the peaceful new order comes about. What that now means is that, as Tim was basically saying, if there was someone who was, let's say, 4 years old in 1914 who was able to kind of discern what was going on, and there was someone who had known that person lived to be to a ripe old age, and there was someone who had even been alive when that person was alive. So we're talking possibly within the next 100 years. Well, if anyone who's a Jehovah's Witness is watching this and is thinking, so that gets him off the hook for being a false prophet and making a prediction that did not come to pass. Now, I want to point out that in a past video of mine, I did mention that this whole 1914 thing was a prophecy. It was a prediction spoken in the Lord's name. Now, in order to discern what precisely the Watchtower, whether or not it was a false prophecy, do we look at what can we make it mean, or what it meant at the time that it was being uttered? Well, let's take a look at what it meant at the time that it was being uttered. I have the Watchtower, October 1st, 1978, page 31. Thus, when it comes to the application in our time, the generation logically would not apply to babies born during World War I. It applies to Christ's followers and others who were able to observe that war and other things have occurred in fulfillment of Jesus' composite sign. Some of such persons will by no means pass away until all of what Christ prophesied occurs, including the end of the present wicked system. Here is from the Watchtower, October 15th, 1980, page 31. Yes, there was a generation of people that was living in 1914 that saw major historical changes. We can be happy, therefore, for Jesus' assurance that there will be survivors of the generation of 1914, that this generation will not have completely passed away when the Great Tribulation rings down the curtain of this current wicked world system. Here's the Watchtower, May 15th, 1984, page 5. The babies of that generation are now 70 years or older, and others alive in 1914 are in their 80s and 90s, even a few even having reached 100. There are still many millions of that generation alive. Some of them will by no means pass away until all things occur. Watchtower, May 5th, 1985, page 4. Excuse me, May 1st, 1985, page 4. Thus, judgment would be executed sometime during the lifespan of the people seeing the first evidence of the time period foretold by Jesus. This time period began in 1914. Thus, before the 1914 generation completely dies out, God's judgment must be executed. Alright, does that make it pretty clear that what the Watchtower meant by putting that prophecy in their Awake magazine on page 4, that it is the Creator's promise that the generation that saw the events of 1914 will not pass away until a new peaceful order comes about, meant that the people who were alive during that generation, those specific people, will not pass away. And now the Watchtower has really painted itself into a corner because those people are all dead. And what they meant at the time, not what can we make it mean, or what can we say to get the Watchtower off the hook, but what did they mean at that time? What they meant at that time was that those people alive during the 1914 generation would still be around when Jesus returned, when Armageddon hit, and it was right around the bend. I'm not saying this so much to be rude, but I mean, doesn't it seem like if the Watchtower predicts that the end is going to be coming, that we can almost be pretty sure it's not? And for me, as a Christian who's, hoping to see the return of Jesus Christ, sometime soon, I kind of wish the Watchtower would just shut up, because it just seems like the more they talk, the more likely it is that it's not going to happen during the course of my life. Jehovah's Witnesses out there, please think about this. And as Tim said, you've been led on for for decades after decades that the end is right around the bend. And maybe it is, and maybe it isn't. I don't know. But, let's not be living under this idea based on a horrible interpretation of Matthew 24 about this generation having something to do with the year 1914. Come on. I'm reaching out to you guys. Please think about it.